The Sawyer Hannay Show.
All right. So welcome, Miriah, to the new podcast, The Sawyer Hannay Show. For those of you listening, Miriah is a friend of mine. We've known each other for a few years. We met originally in the apparel space. She owns My Home Apparel, the brand that I'm sure a lot of you have seen around the Maritimes especially. She also owns some retail stores. She has a history in retail and different things. And now she just opened up a resort outside of Victoria Park in Truro called Seek. So oddly, clothing brought us together. Now accommodations. We both are kind of, I guess, serial entrepreneurs, you could probably say. So welcome to the show. Very happy to have you.
Thanks so much. So happy to be here.
Yeah. So, what's up? Like, we just got through Black Friday with the retail, with the apparel, full fledged with the accommodations. Like, how's things going?
It feels very busy, just because, as we know, we live for the fourth quarter in retail. So it feels, a little hectic and a little stressful just because the economy is a little, unpredictable. So trying to navigate that and make sure we stay on top of our game so that we can sustain into the new year. But even though it's the busiest time in retail, I'm trying not to take my foot off the pedal with Seek because it's also potentially a very busy time, like the holidays, and just trying to really pump up and build that business. So it feels go, 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 and trying not to drop the ball in any course. So I forever feel like I'm on a bit of a hamster wheel, but it's good. Business is good. And just trying to be better organized and plan for 2024.
Yeah. So are you working on a lot of 2024 now?
Yeah, I think with Seek, I think in retail, I've had a really bad history of sort of grasping, kind of last minute. I think as entrepreneurs, we're given the freedom to make spontaneous decisions. And we're able to say this would be a good idea and just implement it. And, big, huge retailers don't do that. And I'm not comparing ourselves to that, but they typically have a marketing strategy that they implement 12 to 18 months ahead. And then they go double down on that. And I've always been very last minute, very scrappy and very this would be a good idea. And I love that as an independent business owner, we can do that. We can just jump in and make those decisions. And sometimes in the middle of the night, you get this great idea and you don't have to wait 12 months to implement it,
Yep.
But I think with Seek, I have to be more organized because I have to spend more in marketing dollars and also think more long term, what is it that I want and how am I going to fill the accommodations and how I'm going to sustain the business. And I can't be as scrappy as I've been in the retail side of it. And really the goal is to have people booking 12 months of the year consistently. And I can't really wait for people to do it. I have to be coming up with new ways and new marketing opportunities to do that.
Right.
And so, I've really trying to be more organized this week than I've typically been in retail, which is always very last minute, off the cuff, not a great planner. So that's sort of where I'm at now.
It's funny, every time we talk, I always relate to the things that you're saying. And now we're finally going to actually record a conversation. It's funny, the reactiveness of being an entrepreneur and being able to make those decisions. It's as a small business owner, it's definitely our strength in the sense that, like you said, you don't got to wait 12 months to implement and you don't got to ask 12 different people for permission to do something. But at the same time, it is a curse because we know that we can just change on the fly and do different things. So sometimes, at least for me, I abuse that authority too, where it's there's a shiny object. I'm going to go pursue that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Right. And historically, I'm not an organized person. Any bit of organizational skills I have, I earned. I worked for. I realized the hard way that I needed to improve in those areas, and sometimes it's easy when you don't have a boss to just kind of let things that you maybe don't like to do slide, And that was me in organization for a long time. I just was like, oh, I'll figure it out, on the fly. But man, it's some valuable when you can get organized and you're working proactively. Like in the last 2 years, 2 years ago, that was my New Year's resolution, was to get better organized. And since then, I've taken consistent steps to getting better organized. And what I'm realizing is when you plan those things in advance, of course, not everything goes to plan, but at least you have the framework in place, and then you can make small adjustments along the way instead of just like giant, efforts along the way that you have to change, right?
Yeah, and I think it adds unnecessary stress. Like, I think there is something inspiring when you kind of, you wake up, or you're in the night, or you have a team meeting and you come up with this great idea, or you see something happening in another part of the country and you're like, oh my goodness, I'd like to do that. And I think there is something really exciting about that. But you do better work when it's planned, and when you can line up all the missing pieces and really take the time to think things through. And, when I started My Home Apparel, it was just me. And then I built the team up, and I had a team of 15 people, between the shops and My Home Apparel working. And we had like a really invigorated team, inputting ideas, sharing concepts, brainstorming, and then I sort of lead the team. But as My Home Apparel sort of dwindled down, and I've sold off one of my stores, and I've focused more on Seek. Seek is just like a one-woman show. Like, my husband works for me, but it's just me. And so sometimes I lack that inspiration, because it's just like, it's all on me to kind of run the day-to-day operations, plus do the marketing, plus come up with all the creative ideas. So I'm hoping that being more organized will help stimulate a little bit more inspiration, and, think about different collaboration opportunities or different marketing opportunities outside of the box. And so I'm hoping that's what being more organized will do, because it is just me. I don't really have like anybody to bounce ideas off of. Right. And that's a big part of my success as a leader and as a business owner, has been the brainstorming and the collaborations and the creative thinking. And so, yeah, I'm just hoping with being more organized and sort of pulling those missing pieces in and pulling the people in during those like strategic times, that will help me as a business owner.
Yeah. And that's something a lot of people don't know too, is the difference between working in a business and working on a business. And it took me a while. I've heard the expression long before I fully understood it. Yeah. And, when you're caught in the day-to-day in the trenches, you're not looking at the long term. You're not looking at the big vision. You're not looking at that stuff. Right. And I find that balance is very important in my businesses, is to dedicate time to the long term instead of just surviving day to day to day.
Yeah. It's a really, really hard thing as a small business owner. It's probably the biggest struggle, is to remember to sort of take a step away and, like you said, to work on your business, because we are the business. Like, even if it's this incorporated company, it's still, we are the business.
Yep.
And we still are the ones that have put everything in and made the sacrifices and went without paychecks and, came up with a lot of the ideas and, cried tears of joy and tears of worry all at the same time. And so it is really hard to step away and to really work. Like, you're doing all these amazing like mastermind courses. That's working on your business. Like, that is doing the work to take a step away, but not enough people prioritize that in their business. And I've been guilty of that too, because I get kind of wrapped up in the hustle of it and then forget, like, wait a second. Take some steps back.
Yeah. And I find working on the business, I categorize like working on myself and becoming a better person, better operator, better entrepreneur, as the same, because we are so married to our businesses, as the same as working on my business. So, for example, we're now planning photo shoots for 2024. Well, we're talking about like seasonal drops, we're talking about like fall 2024 photo shoot. Where's it going to be? What products are we shooting? That's basically a year in advance. So I consider that type of work the same as me going to the mastermind and being better educated, because in 6 months, 12 months from now, I'll be thankful that I put in the work to further educate myself today. The payoff might only be in a year's time, just like that photo shoot, the payoff for that, planning that shoot may only be in a year's time. But I think that it's so important to dedicate, but very consciously cut out time in your calendar and say, today is a educational day. Today I'm investing in my future. Tomorrow I'm, putting out fires in my business. And yesterday that's what I was doing. But today for this 3-hour block, I'm working on, myself or working on the long term of the business. And that was something it took me a long time, one, to realize the importance of it, but also to be able to do it because I was so scrambly and so just running fire to fire. I couldn't dare take a second to look back, and that was working weekends, evenings, things. So it started with like having a healthier work life balance. And then, as you involve team members or as you delegate or as you find efficiencies, then you can look, okay, well, maybe within working hours, maybe I actually have a little bit of time to work on myself or further educate myself or work on the long term of the business. Right.
Yeah. Or have free time, have downtime that doesn't involve work. Because like so much of my identity is ingrained in work because that's what I do all the time. I work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. So it's hard to even have hobbies or interests when all you do is work. And so it's hard to be inspired when you're working all the time. Like if you're just in the grind of it, it is, you kind of like, even if you love your job, like even if you're like, hey, I've always loved my job. It didn't even matter when times were tough. I always couldn't wait to get to work.
Right.
But it is really difficult to like have that fire in you when you're just like working in the business all the time. And then when you take a step back, like I've done some amazing conferences or gone to some incredible retreats. And even like I started prioritizing 2 times a year where I go away by myself for 3 days and just disconnect. Like don't even, just, it's not far, like 2 hours away, but just to, just to and then you feel like really fired up again and like super inspired. And you're like, wow, just taking a breath and, not working. And I just go by myself. So there's like nobody asking questions, take a bottle of wine, cook some food, watch some movies, read some books, do whatever I want. And you instantly feel like, wow, I like really like gung ho to get back and like, okay, I have these great ideas. Where were they? They're just like, so you were so busy in the day to day, and then you just like stepped away from that, and all those like ideas came out again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's you almost need that separation, that free time, and as productive aholics, we allocate every ounce of energy, every ounce of time, but creative people, artists and things, they take time to step back. They don't rush a painting. They don't rush a song. They sit back, they see how they feel, they, touch it, they go away, they go for a walk, so I always try to remind myself of how like art is created and like creating that space between task to task to task to task. You need that brainstorming and it can't be forceful. Like, okay, for 20 minutes, I'm going to brainstorm, jot it out, get it done. And we're good. No, like it's hard to put a time, so I love that you get away and do that. And I went to Costa Rica last year as my first vacation since I started my business. And that was the exact reason why it was like, okay, I need to do this. I need my body and my mind to relax and lay on a beach for 3 straight days and not worry about what I'm missing. What did I forget to do, or who did I forget to call back, or what email did I not respond to properly, or, and when I left Costa Rica, I felt recharged, like you said, and I promised myself, I'm going to prioritize a vacation every year. And that type of vacation, not like go and party my face off for a week, like rest and relaxation, and a lot of the smart people that I'm around and learning from at these masterminds and things, coaching and things, they prioritize rest. Like sometimes they schedule it out, and as such a go-getter, like when I started, I had nothing, a few $100, and I was trying to like pay for my personal bills and then build a business. So I was like playing hockey, I was supply teaching, I was doing anything to make money. So that's not out of me completely, but I'm realizing, like, for example, this year I'm playing hockey on the weekends, working all week. And like, I shouldn't be playing hockey. I'm getting paid, so it's like, I'm ambitious. Yeah, a little extra money and it's fun and stuff. But like, I'm exhausted. The weekends should be for rest. so I can be super effective all week at work, right?
Yeah.
So part of me selling Liberty Village was that exactly that. It's like, in theory, I have enough hours in a week to do all of this, but in actuality, it's like, I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the energy, and it's an irresponsible spend of my time, because if I'm doing 10 different things at 60% capacity, because that's all I can possibly give,
Yeah.
How productive am I,
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it is you just get tired, and it's like it's just a different type of exhaustion, and not something that don't well it's like a stage of burnout, whatever that looks like for different people, but it's like your body can only take so much for so much time, and like how can you operate in a creative good space as a good boss, a good business owner, when you're just like sort of trudging through the mud trying to get through the day. And I think rest is a big part of it. And when I started, I had a business partner. This is when I had a jewelry business.
Yep.
I had a business partner, and it was just a real small, like, little startup, and we built it into this bigger business. But she was really, really, really good at setting limits, like drawing a line in the sand, being like, no, I go home at 5 o'clock and I don't work in the evening, and I spend time on the weekends with my kids. And I was so, like, I think I have this like super entrepreneurial spirit because I was raised in that type of environment where it was like go, 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 go.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, I have this intrinsic like hustle mentality. So I actually have to work harder to rest. But I thought like she was lazy. Like, I was like,
Right.
She's not an entrepreneur. I shouldn't say lazy. She wasn't lazy, but I was like, she's not a real entrepreneur. Like, a real entrepreneur works all the time. And like, she's not willing to put in the time or the effort to, like, be a real entrepreneur. And so it disintegrated because we had different values in terms of how we operated in the business. And then as I matured and I understood things better, I was like, actually, she's really smart because she set from day one in her business. And sometimes it doesn't always work that way. Like, things come up and you have to step in and you have to like solve problems, and you can't always be like, I'm off at 5. Like, that's it. Like, sometimes there's things you have to do. But having that sort of mindset, like, no, there's limits of what I'm willing to do right from the get-go, is incredibly valuable. And I think, like, would I have been further ahead in my business? I don't think so. Like, if I had built rest in from day one and built time off from day one, I might be further ahead in terms of feeling less burnout in self-employment, because I would have just like been like, no, like, I take every Sunday off. Like, I could have easily said that. Like, I never work Sundays. I turn my phone off. Nobody bothers me. But I've always been like, I'm always available. I always work. And yeah, I've taken trips and I've had holidays, but I've never really like been off. Like, I've always been like, my phone's on. I'm always available. I've never really like disconnected completely.
Yep.
So I do think, like, if somebody was to ask me, like, in startup phase, like, what are some things that are really important, I would say that that's really important, is to have like better personal boundaries in terms of, and you hear it, it's like this whole hustle mentality is kind of like a thing of the past.
Yep.
But I lived that severely and thought that was the real sign of success, was how hard you worked, not how well you worked. Like, using your time.
Well, it's the balance between working hard and working smart, right? And I grew up with the mentality, like, I was cutting grass when I was 12, and then onward, when I was old enough to like be within construction environments, that's what I did all the way through my teens. And like, the mentality was, if you're not bleeding, exhausted, sweating, your shirt's not torn, you didn't work hard enough. Like, that was kind of the mentality. And it's like, it definitely made me who I am in a lot of ways. But now with maturity, I'm like, well, I need to work smart, because for me to just grind as hard as possible mindlessly, is that more productive than if I take a deep breath and sit back, think about this, do it the most efficient way possible, and get home at 5, 6 o'clock at night? Like, what is more productive, and I think that a lot of us grew up that way, where it's just like, work yourself to the bone, and then you're allowed to feel accomplished at the end of the day.
Yeah. Totally. And I think, like, I think it's part of generational upbringing. And I think, I have 2 kids, And I think about it with them all the time. Like I just had this conversation with my friend about how like I feel like I'm teaching my kids that work is everything and that that rest is not a priority because all they have ever seen since they've been born is work all the time.
Right.
I mean, I'm an involved mom and I'm very dedicated parent and I'm a big part of their life. But whenever I'm not like doing something with them, I'm working.
Right.
Like they don't really see me, I get up at 5 a.m. and I go to the gym, but I'm home and showered by the time they even get up. So like they don't even really see that. But they don't see me like sit in a chair and like read a book or like sit and like do nothing. Like just do nothing. They don't see it. I don't think they've ever seen it. And what's not a great thing to teach them. So they never want to be self-employed because they think it's like the worst.
They're going the opposite way.
yeah. They're like, oh man, we don't want to work like you. But I think, like I often think that like I've never really taught them like the importance of rest because I've been so much of that like go hustle, go hustle mentality. And I haven't really delegated well. I have felt that working, I've intertwined my identity with work is really what it's boiled down to. It's like I almost don't know who I am if I'm not working. And so I don't want to like teach them that. Like I want to teach them like to rest and to like enjoy hobbies that have nothing to do with work, and like if if someone said like, what are your hobbies? Like I like to travel and I like, to be outside, but I don't really like have time for hobbies because I work all the time. And that's not good either. Like you have to have an identity outside of like you would any other job, like your friends that are teachers or work for the government or do other things. They have interests, like they work 9 to 5 and then they go home and they do things. They have their weekends. They take 5 weeks vacation a year and they have interests. But often as being self-employed, like we sort of prioritize work and sort of it's become such a huge part of us that we sort of also lose sight of those things.
But you used to work before you started your jewelry business, right? Weren't you a teacher?
Yep.
So what were you like then? Like, were you as go then, or did you have that work? So you were always wired this way.
Yes, I was. I was the teacher that would like go to schools on Saturdays and Sundays and work. But I mean, I was a new teacher. Like, I don't know if I had done 10 years time, if I still would have had to work as hard. I was like basically kind of in that startup teacher mode. So I was like learning as I was going and creating lessons as I was going. But I've always been that. I've always been that like very high achieving, overworked, but self-inflicted,
But I see a pattern there. You just describe yourself as like a startup teacher that was go, trying to make your way. I know you're working for someone else, but that's the same as My Home Apparel, same as your jewelry business, same as Seek. You seem to really like to start stuff, get it off the ground, and then you get interested in other things. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. It's really funny how I became an entrepreneur. Like, I don't know if I ever really told you like the true story of it. Like, it's not that I've hidden it, but it's just like I've never really shared like how it all started for me. So when I was in university, well, actually, when I graduated from high school, I took a year off and I traveled. I backpacked for a year, and I traveled through the Middle East and through Europe, and I decided like, wow, I mean, I grew up in a village of 300 people, like similar to you, real small town. And I was like, this whole other world out there. And so I was like, I'm going to keep traveling. So when I went to university, I took my third year and I traveled and I went to university in Australia, but then I traveled through Southeast Asia and like other parts of that side of the world. And then when I graduated university, I took a year off and I backpacked. And in that time, I started like buying things and then coming back and selling it, which then paid for another trip. And so then I did another year trip and backpacked around the world again.
You were buying things while you traveled and bringing it back to Canada?
Yeah, and
really?
selling it and like selling to friends and like just like making like a couple $1,000, like nothing serious. So then my last trip, big trip that I did around the world, I landed a lifetime goal, which was to go to India. And so I spent 2 months in India and I bought some jewelry. And then I came back and I said, okay, I'm going to set it up at a festival in Calgary and I'm going to sell it and make some money. And I did. And I made like $5,000. Like it was crazy. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. So then I spent every spring break or March break as a teacher was 1 week time. Like I had 7 days, but I would fly to India, spend 5 days, and then fly back. And then I spent my entire summer selling jewelry at different festivals and events. And I used to do like 12 a summer. And I built it up. And then when I moved back to Nova Scotia, I took a business partner. We rebranded it Beck and Bouche. And then we started selling studios and wholesaling all across the country and really built that business up very quickly. But I loved the like community side of the jewelry business in the sense I used to go to India, like have chai with the owners and like really got to know their families. And I used to travel to India twice a year, really built these connections. And so when I was selling you the earrings, yes, it was just a transaction, but it really felt like it was part of the experience. Like it was like I went there and I picked up these pieces. And then as the jewelry business grew, that personal side of it really became less important. And because my business partner probably was smarter, she wanted to make costs more efficient and she wanted to buy massive amounts from China. And we really didn't have those relationships. And she was a better business person in the sense of the bottom line, but like why I love to travel and be an entrepreneur was like that experience with the, but in that process, I had the idea for the home shirt and we were going to stamp it on jewelry. And because I had built this whole collection called Story, and it was all the things that I started to hand make jewelry and all the things that like make up your story. And one of them was the place that you call home. And so that's where the idea came from. And so then someone said, you should put that on t-shirts. And so I did. And then overnight became a sensation. Started selling thousands of t-shirts. So I never dreamt of having an apparel company. I never dreamt of starting t-shirts. Like it was never in the slightest on my radar. Like I never even wanted to have that type of business. But it became an overnight sensation. Started selling thousands and thousands of t-shirts very quickly. And then I was like, oh my goodness, okay, I got to get this figured out. And so then I, sold the jewelry, rebranded the clothing, made it a Canadian made clothing company that's rooted in give back and celebrating where we call home, to help end homelessness in Canada, and sort of rebranded and, sort of created a company that aligned more with my values and the community, which was the part of like entrepreneurship that I really loved.
Right.
But I never dreamt of having a clothing company. I never, like I said, I never was a aspiration of mine. And then it just built up. And then I decided, okay, well, I'm going to have a retail outlet. And then I had a retail store. And then that took a life of its own and became very successful. And then I opened multiple retail stores and they became very successful. And to the point that I was kind of like spinning and going like, what is it that I actually want to do? Because I was good at it and I built it very quickly, but it was never based on like a passion. Right. Like, they often say like start a business with something you're really passionate about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm one of those people that say that.
That was not me. I wasn't passionate about East Coast clothing. I was passionate and continue to be passionate about community. Right. And I'm very passionate. So that's what I always say, like the clothing was a vehicle. It was never really about the designs. It was never really about the thing you were wearing. It was about the messaging and the give back. Right. And then my stores are very much rooted in community, and we do a lot of give back work through the stores. And also with Seek, I feel that we really help shape the community, and by building a new destination and connecting people to nature and building a sense of community around Victoria Park and sort of having that like place that we start from, So yeah, I think like, we sort of went into a totally different direction, but I feel like a part of my hustle it's been because I'm kind of figuring it out as I go, because I never really had that passion that fired me up from the beginning. It wasn't like I was like, I've heard, a little bit about your story and like where it came from and your idea to create the t-shirts and the places that you call home. And I never had that. I basically had a light bulb idea that worked out really, really well in my favor and has made me a lot of money over the past 9 years. So it's hard to sustain it when you never really like had that passion from the beginning. It's hard to keep that going when you're like, wait a second, I'm kind of tired now. And I never really knew if I wanted to do this from the beginning. So now I feel like I'm all over again trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah, well, it's easy to get caught chasing opportunity or chasing dollars, or chasing like, this is working, so why wouldn't I do it? Like there's lots of people that are struggling to figure out something to do, and here I have something I'm good at and something that's paying the bills. Why wouldn't I do this? But I definitely think the passion is so important, because I think it gets stale without the passion eventually. As human beings, we want to be fulfilled. We want to have purpose. We want to make an impact. We want to make a difference. I feel like we're biologically designed that way. So I think without the passion, I think things can just get stale or stagnant. And I know even during different seasons of my business, I definitely had more stagnation where it was just kind of dated, that copy paste, like, okay, today's the same as yesterday and the next day will be the same. And I'm just kind of, and what really fills me up is being creative and trying to push those limits and expand and trying to make the most of it. And, just trying to grow and be unconventional and do different things. But I think that if you don't have those motivations and those reasons to push and, that are passion filled, I think that you are at risk for just kind of getting bored and, maybe, trying to do something else or just watching kind of things deteriorate because you don't have that passion fueling you forward. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like, if you're a hard worker, like I would define myself as a hard worker. And like you, serial entrepreneur, like I'm not afraid to put in the time.
Right.
I'm not afraid to make the sacrifices that need to be made. But like you can just kind of keep going because you have that. Like you can just sort of plug away at anything because you have this sort of ability to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I've just sort of maintained, and I have to say, like surprisingly, I loved the business because I loved the community and the give back. I loved it. Like it's really what got me up every day. But eventually, after so long of using that as, my own fire, you even do start to kind of peter out with that too. Cause you're like, well, that sustained me. That kept me going. But at what point is that enough? And what is it that I'm actually really good at? Like, what is it that I'm good at? And is it in clothing? Probably not. Like when I look at someone like yourself that's, really good at coming up with new designs and new ideas and willing to make the investment and reaching out to other creatives to help you in areas that you struggle, like in, some of the designs and things like that. Mm-hmm. That's what it takes. But I just don't really, like, that's not actually what I'm good at. Like, right. I'm good at the I'm good at making the connections and like, building that sense of community and doing the give back component, but like building an apparel business and what it takes is not my strength. And it's hard to face that. It's hard to face the writing on the wall, which is like, maybe this is what you're not the best at anymore.
Right. Well, it's interesting because you've been at it for a while and you were good at it. And maybe it's just the natural succession. Like you're just meant to move on to something else, and maybe that's why within you felt the urge to start Seek, which is a completely different business than apparel, not even close. Like, it's hospitality versus product. It's like just everything, besides like the accounting, which every business has similar like accounting, importance and metrics. Everything else is different. The marketing is different. The clientele is different. The the scalability is different. The cash investment's different. Your customer service components are so different, so walk me through, like, and it's funny because I can relate, but I'd love to hear it from you. Walk me through, like, running a clothing business and now running a resort, like the differences, the transition, all that stuff.
So I grossly underestimated the amount of work that Seek was going to take. You know this because you've lived it. You've lived it so well that now with your new adventure, you've sort of prepared for that and brought on the right people and budgeted for that from the beginning. I didn't, because I didn't prepare for the extensive level of cleaning, the extensive amount of day-to-day operational work to maintain a property the size of Seek.
Yep.
And to really, because it's so new, to really like double down on the messaging. And like, you could buy the shirts is very transactional. I'm not saying someone doesn't have to think long and hard before spending $95 in a hoodie. Like, it's not necessarily impulsive.
Yeah.
But to spend $400 or $500 away in a weekend takes a little bit more preparation and a little bit, the stores are very transactional. You like a mug, you come in, you buy it, you leave, have a great day, thank you for your business. Seek is a totally different experience. So I'm really grappling with the amount of work, trying to understand how to work better. I'm also so busy working in the business, like we already talked about, that I haven't been able to successfully work on the business, which is what I'm really good at. I'm really good at working on the business. I think I'm good at marketing. I think I'm good at building concepts. I think I'm good at like thinking things through and building good systems and processes. But I really don't have time because I'm cleaning, I'm answering customer service emails. I'm trying to figure everything out because it's all new for me, doing laundry, so on and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to the next step, which is to be able to hire someone to help take some of these things off. I'm sort of working through some planning with my existing businesses to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And what really drew me to Seek was because even though I said, well, I don't really know if I have any interest or passion, I do, in that I've always been very interested in wellness, in particular, like the natural world and wellness in that component, being outside, and also natural health in general. So I've always actually almost went into that when I was 27. I almost completely shifted careers and went into be a natural health coach. And I also seek a lot of self-care in nature. I love to be outside. I love to hike. I love to bike. I love anything to do with being outside. And so Seek really is about that for me. And maybe I really messed up by building a multi-million-dollar resort with a hobby that I could have just enjoyed being outside instead of building something so high pressure. But I think the ultimate goal for me is to build a place that really connects people with nature. So the goal for Seek is to build more of that wellness component in, connecting more of Seek with the park, dialing more on my ideal customer base. Because right now, like for the past year, it's really been like bums in beds. You know what that's like to get people in there. But that's not my long-term strategy. Obviously, I always want to be full, but I want to be full with the right clientele. People, more adventure seekers. I think now there's just like a lot of interest, so people are coming and staying, and not necessarily my target market.
Yep.
So I really feel that when I bridge more out into the wellness component and making a better bridge between Seek and Victoria Park, like I try in my messaging, but the more, all the things that people can do in the park, and perhaps taking people into the park, offering more wellness components, nature components, I think will be better for me. And that's really what I'm focused on, and really remembering why I built Seek. I don't want to lose sight of that. I don't want to lose sight of what my why. I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm just a cleaning staff and I'm just this. Like, I really want, which you can get caught up in when you're working in the business all the time.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
But I don't want to lose sight of what my goal is this week and like what I'm trying to do. And then it really does fill me up. Like when I when I walk in my store, I do really feel like I'm coming home and I'm really proud of what I've built and I really love it.
Mm-hmm.
But also when I go to Seek, I feel the same. I really feel like, wow, like I've built this and people are coming from all over to enjoy it. And a gray November day, you think like, why are people here? And you look and all your cabins are full and you think like, wow, like, okay, I'm figuring this out. Like we're doing
Yep.
okay. And I just want to be able to work less in the day-to-day operations and really be able to work on the bigger picture stuff, and work on more offerings and collaborations and, so that I can double down on the messaging to attract more of my ideal target market.
Right. Yeah. I found with Liberty Village, it was so exciting to go and it was new and it was building. And every time I would go, there'd be like a new surge in progress and things like that. And then we were operating and then things weren't always going to as planned. And that's when things kind of got stressful when I realized the demand for myself in that business versus on the business. Because the theory part and the whole concept and all of this, and even the like the financial management of it, it almost felt like I was kind of playing like a roller coaster tycoon or something, or Monopoly or something in real life. Right. So it was like really fun and exciting and things. But yeah, for me, when I was working so heavily in the business for so long, I realized, okay, I need to maybe hire out or I need to, and that's when I started to look at other options. And in hindsight, the lessons I learned with that, I'm trying to apply now to Cabina in the falls, our new resort. I'm not sure when this episode will air, so we might actually be open by then, if not close to it. I try to correct all of those things. And right away, you mentioned something at the first of the podcast where like, it's kind of all on you. You don't have anyone to bounce things off of. And so that was something with me at Liberty Village. I made a lot of rookie mistakes. One, because I was a rookie. Two, because I didn't have any collaborative partners to brainstorm with. So the first thing I promised myself, I said, if I do this again, I'm going to do it with a partner. So I have someone to bounce ideas off of, someone that can offer counterbalance because as you know, because I know you're humble, we don't have all the answers. We're good at what we do, but we're not like the best and we don't make all the right decisions all the time. Right. So it's like nice to have that counterbalance and things like that. And also within that business model, from day one, we decided, both of us, because he owns a business and I own a business, we said, like, we're not going to be the phone call if there's a door that needs unlocked at midnight, or we're not going to be the phone call if someone clogs the toilet, or, we can't be. And if the business model suggests we have to be, we're not going to move ahead, like, and that was it. Like, I love what we're doing. I'm happy. I'm proud. And he's been fantastic and he's super smart and he's a great partner and all those things, which is great. So things, to this point have worked out. But if there was ever a time when it was going to kind of compromise his business, compromise mine, or compromise our like mental health, or like compromise any of that stuff, we just weren't going to move ahead. And we in advance, we did a lot of that deciding and thinking. Like, it's been over 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
With Liberty Village, I sprinted and got it done in 8 months or something throughout the winter, throughout COVID. Like, it was just an all out sprint, because as soon as you get your capital in, you want revenue to start coming back. But Corey and I, we really took our time. And before financially investing, we invested a lot of time and energy, and we had weekly calls and discussions and, things like that. So, all those lessons that I learned the hard way with Liberty Village, I'm trying to correct with the next round. And I feel like you've done so much. Like, your place is beautiful. That's one thing. Liberty Village was a lot of renovations and a lot of secondhand buildings, things like that. Like, I love that you went brand new. I love that you went with C-Can. Like, anyone listening that doesn't know your business, like, you went with C-Can containers, which is so cool. And also the sustainability factor. So I think for your first run, I think you're doing a really great job, from the outside looking in. Obviously, I don't know the weeds of your business, but it really looks great from the outside.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, like it is going surprisingly well. Like, not really knowing what I'm doing. The only thing that I know is that I'm well traveled myself. And so I know the types of places I like to stay. I know the things that are important to me. I do think, like I'm not old, but I'm not young. I'm 42. So I know the things that I was prepared to probably go without, but now I want, like I sort of feel like I wanted something a little nicer, not luxurious. Like I'm not like a 5-star resort, but something that, had the comforts that I would want that perhaps wouldn't have been as important to me 10 or 15 years ago.
Yep.
But most importantly, I feel so proud of what we've built in a short time, but also our connection to the park and our connection to the town, and that we've really changed the landscape, because nothing like this has ever existed in the town of Truro. And aside from Irwin Lake Chalets, which is in Colchester and Old Barns, there's really not been any experiential accommodations in Truro and area, before out towards Tatamagouche, which is in Colchester, but then you're in Wentworth, which is Cumberland. So it's all kind of like new to this, area.
Yeah.
And it's really changed the landscape for the park too, because now we have this accommodations on there, and people are visiting that have never been to the park, that are from like Nova Scotia, and you think like, how have you never been? And it's connecting people to nature more, which is, I think with Kavina, it's the same. Like it's incredibly important, and it's incredibly important for our environment, for people to be connected to nature. Like, how can you care about it if you don't have a relationship with it?
Right.
You never stand under a tree or touch a tree or feel a tree or breathe in the air directly under it. How could you ever have a relationship with it and then say, I want to protect this and I want to do better to save our home? And so it does give me tremendous pride that we were able to sort of build this destination, and I was able to pull it off with zero experience, and no knowledge as a construction project manager. And I'm really looking forward to the future of Seek. Like, I don't know what, I wanted, like I said, I want to do more of the wellness component, which is the next phase of the business, and continue to grow Seek in that way. But I, like I said, I grossly underestimated the amount of work, but I did underestimate the popularity. Like, it's done very well for its first, the first 3 months were real rough. Like, I opened at a terrible time, and it wasn't good for business, and it was a really rough winter. But once spring hit and people were wanting to be out again, it did very well. And it's pretty much been full. I mean, now the weekdays are not always full, but we're maintaining our goal, which is I'm super thankful for.
Oh, good. I'm happy for you. And life as a business owner, life as an entrepreneur, I mean, you took a massive risk, right? So I'm sure within those cold winter months when you open and you're not quite proving concept yet, there was probably some sleepless nights, where you're like, I have a lot of money invested in this. Like, is this going to turn for me? Is this going to work out? And that's something people don't talk about or realize. A lot of people see a business owner and they see the fruits of what they do, but they don't see that, like there's no stress like financial stress. And when you're all in, or you have a large part of, your available capital or borrowing power and XYZ all invested in one project, man, you're all in. Your chips are all on the table,
They really are in this particular project, because I didn't take a business partner and I didn't take an investor. I kind of got like discouraged. I actually was looking for investors originally, and then the bank really sort of discouraged me from doing that and said, we'll give you the money instead.
Why would they discourage you from doing that?
I think they thought that I could do it on my own. And I think the people who were interested in investing, they were just a little cautious about.
Right.
And I thought, well, if I can do it myself, let's do it myself. But here was the problem, was that the budget was so tight, which I was actually landed on budget, all things considered, until the hurricane hit. And then that really screwed me up. But then I had fine to complete the project on budget. Great. But then there's no cash flow to operate the business, which really you need to, in hospitality, you need at least, in my opinion, and again, I'm still learning, but at least a year to sustain and operate, because you're really not going to hit, like, you're really going to still struggle for the first year. Like, I had a great summer.
Yeah.
And I've done pretty well in November, considering why are people coming to Truro in November? I've done very well. But I mean, I have to bank on, like, basically we could have a winter of nor'easters and nobody could come. So then what? Like, you have to really have that rainy day money.
Yep.
And Seek is not I just need $5,000 a month to operate. Like, I need a lot of money to just sustain bottom line. So I didn't prepare to have cash flow in the business. I didn't so I'm very still quite scrappy, because it's like, okay, and then everything's new. So it's like, okay, we need 7 barbecues. Okay, fill the cabins, go buy 7 barbecues. Okay, now we need 7 barbecue covers. And it's like, but so next year will be better. But I think that was, something I really didn't prepare for. And I did invest a lot of personal money, like from my success over the past 9 years. I had really tucked a lot away. And so I had a lot of money, but that it really put a lot of strain on my other businesses. And the other thing too is, like, I started my home apparel with $15,000 maybe. Like, I had I had a few Tupperwares of shirts and sold them out of the back of my car. And there's never really seemed to be a lot of risk, because I'd sell shirts and then print some more and sell shirts and print some more. But this is a whole other, this is not even in the same realm.
Mm-hmm.
And, you start, I do things like try to get bums in bed. So I'll BOGO last minute accommodations and stuff like that. But you also have to be cautious with that too. Cause you want to have a level of standards, and so it's always a very hard balance of how low am I willing to go to get people in here? What's my line?
It's funny, your view on risk, because with Liberty Village, I was always like, it's real estate. At least you can borrow against it. Try to go to the bank with your inventory and say, hey, bank, give me the cash value of this inventory. They're going to laugh you right out of the room. Yeah. So there's definitely pros and cons. And I think with experience, because, I sold my first rental property, you could sell Seek. You could. It might be hard, and it might, you might have to be patient and whatever. You could. Where if you had, 200,000-300,000 in t-shirts and your brand is not popular, or maybe for some reason there's a boycott of your brand or whatever, you're in big trouble,
Mm-hmm.
So it's a dangerous game. That's just business though. And we know what we sign up for, right? We know, and that's part of the rush. It's we have to make this work or else.
Well, I did see Seek as, so, I took $500,000 out of my business cash I had, so I didn't have to borrow it. And I invested in Seek. And I saw it as an investment. I saw it because I actually, when I started, after a while, my account was like, you can spend a lot of money there. You should really do something with it.
Right.
So I started looking at apartment buildings, and I started looking at the stock market, and I was kind of humming and hawing as to what I wanted to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I needed to take some steps to grow that. So I did invest in Seek as a long-term investment. I'm like, okay, in 10 years, maybe not that soon, because 10 years goes by very fast, but let's say in 10 years, I've paid off my debt, I've built it up to this great business and done the things I want to do. I could certainly sell it. Like you said, it could take 2 years to sell, it could take 5 years to sell, whatever, but I could sell it. And I've developed land. So even if the person came and said, oh, I don't even want to have rental accommodations, but I certainly want to have 7 houses on there. I've now brought services in.
Right.
And I know that the land now was worth nothing and now is incredibly valuable, or will be incredibly valuable, because we're not making more of it. So I do know that. And I do know that it is my retirement plan. And it, because I'll have most of my debts paid, and I'll also get my investment back that I did put in eventually. And I'm able to say, okay, I'm ready to either take a step back which is I may still own it, but I'm really just the owner. I just help support, but I bring in new energy that want to run the day-to-day operations.
Yeah.
And I do see it as an amazing investment. It's just I feel like I'm back in the bootstrap and startup phase. And that's hard because I sort of built my home apparel and my home mercantile up real bootstrap. And like I said, shirts out of my car,
Yep.
traveling coast to coast.
Yep.
And then I'm
You've paid
there
your
all
dues.
over. I did pay my dues, but
Yeah.
with Seek, because I didn't really like plan it the way you did, I'm back in that bootstrapping phase. And it's I'm not afraid of the work, like I said, but it's a little humbling for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe if you spend time working on your business, you can come up with solutions for some of these issues, right? And it could be as little as, hiring someone to do the cleaning and like I know last time we talked, I recommended a book. That's what it's all about. It's all about like hiring out specific things that you should hire out and then focusing on the specific things that that you want to do, or that you're good at or that's going to drive the business, right?
Yes.
So, but I understand like budget wise, that's where I was with Liberty Village. I couldn't just delegate everything. The numbers didn't allow for it. Right.
Yes.
So, that's just how it is. Right. So my solution was to end up, selling it and realizing my own limitations, talk about a humbling experience. Cause I was like gung ho, I can do this and, I can afford to do it. So like, no one can tell me I can't do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that was my mentality, but I was certainly humbled, realized my limitations, also realized, my priorities and things like that. But yeah, it's all part of the process. It's all part of the learning process. And with your property, there are sea-can containers. So, hey, worst case scenario, they could all be sold and gone in a week. Not sold in a week, but I mean, transported out of there in a week and sold off to whoever. It's a trucking container. And when we built our place, we did tiny homes on trailers, and we spent an extra, I think, maybe 8,000 to 10,000 per just for the trailer versus just a permanent structure. But there was benefits, like building permit wise. There was benefits. There's taxing benefits to that, and also you can hook on and move it. You can disconnect that stuff as long as you have an electrician, or turn the power off, and I'll cut the wire myself. And you can hook up that trailer and sell it down the road if you had to, right? So to me, I feel better with my risk, knowing that, well, worst case scenario, there's ways to figure this out. My life is not going to be over if I don't hit my budget, my goals,
Yes. And I've talked to because when I originally got a quote for the shipping containers and then built them, they had gone up 20%. But apparently they've gone up even more and they've become quite a bit more expensive.
Yep.
And so my goal is actually eventually to probably sell them and then build something else there. But I don't know, maybe not, maybe I'm not sure. But that was always kind of my original plan. And I think, permitting now, they're going to allow tiny homes in communities where they didn't allow them before. I actually think both in your case where they're on the wheels and in the shipping containers, I actually think where before, the only place that they could put them was on their own land someplace. Like they couldn't really put them in the town. But now the town has passed that you can have these accessible dwelling units in your backyard to put, your in-laws or rent them out or whatever.
Like a bunkie or something, yeah.
Exactly. So now that because we have, housing shortages, so now the town's allowed to actually see that both the tiny homes and the shipping containers have a lot more value because somebody could actually, in a year's time, could buy it from me if I decided to change my accommodations or whatever, probably for more than what I paid for them. And then I can build something else or do something else. So I think you're right. It is really smart to build modularly that way.
Yep.
And like you said, you can always someone can come yoink or pull it away and say, okay, well, I could probably get back what I paid for them. And then now I've invested this land. So now the land has value and development is just going to continue to grow as we grow as a region. So as a province, as a Eastern Canada. So like you said, I think in real estate is is a good investment for sure.
Well, the development will continue to grow. The infrastructure costs will only go up. They're not going down. Building materials and all that, and the contracted labor that goes with those building materials, they're only going up. That stuff's not just going to go down because everyone feels like being real generous. That's going to go up. And, I looked into, I don't know if I talked to you about this, and I won't say too much because it's a small town, and a lot of my community members listen to this podcast. But I bought a piece of land with partners here in Rexton, a different piece of land outside of Liberty Village before Cabina, before Cabina and before I sold Liberty Village, and we looked into doing 3 tiny home containers, C-can containers, and we had the engineered drawings, and we had all of that. And there was with my partners, there was kind of like a taxing reason why we didn't end up doing it. Because obviously they're business owners, I'm a business owner, whatever. So we just decided to sell the land and kibosh it. But we looked into it, and I know for a fact, since we got those quotes a few years ago, to do that same project again would have been probably 30 to 40% more.
Yeah.
Just by looking at all the quotes I got with Cabina and then remembering the quotes I got for that project. So right off the hop, it all those prices just go up. I mean, I remember when in my little town, you could buy a starter home for $125,000. Good luck getting into anything for less than $225,000 now. It's the way it's going. So to me, it's like the best, if you can afford to do it, the best time to do it is now. I know people say the interest rate, people say the economy, people say, this and that, and COVID, should I build now? Should I wait till after COVID is, are my trusses the price going to go down? Like, even building this warehouse from fall till spring, everything went up 20%. And I'm sure if I tried to build this same building now, starting today, it'd probably be another 20%.
Yeah.
So it's just the way it is, right? So that's the one thing I do like about real estate is you have something, you physically have something that's worth something,
Yes, you're absolutely right. And it's like there will be goodwill, and attached Seek at some point in time, but there's much more tangible assets. Like you already talked about with the clothing, it's really hard to put a value, and the inventory really could be worth nothing.
Yep.
Inventory is only worth something if someone's buying it. And, you put the blood, sweat, and tears into your clothing brand, but the truth of the matter is it's only valuable to the person that sees value in it. And where Seek is a little bit more, it will be a little bit more transactional. This is how much the land is. This is how much the containers are. And then, you build, you sell the shares of the business and off you go. But, so I don't know, I hope that I didn't put all my eggs in one basket for failure, but I am hopeful. And I think like this, the response has been great. I can't sustain myself on the community because obviously I'm not catering to Truro residents, but the people of Truro certainly have my back because I've been so involved in the community for the past 9 years and done a lot for the community. And so, when people feel connected to me and they're very supportive of Seek, I'm super, super grateful for that. And people really told a lot of people, they come up, they drive through to see it, and they are very excited for me. And I think in the next phase of the business, it will continue to grow the community and in a unique way. And I'm really excited about that and sort of bringing people together. And my big thing now is just trying to juggle it all and to figure out my next step in my life because I can't continue to do it all anymore. And, where my next chapter takes me.
Yeah. And a lot of that's going to come from that working on the business, that brainstorming, that, going away for 3 days with your bottle of wine and a good book and just thinking about what moves am I going to make over the course of the next 6-12 months that are going to allow for my personal goals to be met, that work-life balance goal that, you'd like to have to be met, right? Like you're going to have to be proactive. You're going to have to set aside time to really think and consider that, So
Absolutely.
It might be a nice time after the holidays when the retail stuff kind of slows down in Q1, right?
Yeah.
To take that time. I always take Q1. Q1 is my biggest visionary quarter because there's not a lot of action going on. It's a lot of planning and a lot of stuff. So that's when I always take my time to kind of think about that stuff, right?
You might be busy though with your new business. So you might
Yeah.
be, on the ground running. I know you have people to really run the day-to-day operations, but I still think it's going to take your brain. I think it's going to take Corey's too.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I'm sure.
and I think, people are very invested in you personally. Like I don't know Corey's presence online, but you personally, people love to follow your story and what you're doing and, see your success. And so I think people will be very excited for you in your next chapter, your new adventure.
Yeah, I hope
And
so.
I think so. Yeah. So do you have a timeline yet, or maybe you can't incriminate yourself?
Well, I don't want to put a guarantee on anything because I know better, but I will say our biggest bottleneck has been NS Power. We just got our inspection approved Monday, which is yesterday, which when this recording comes out, no one will know when that was, but early December. And we're supposed to have our hookup in the next few days. So, I mean, it could be mid-December we have our power, and then it's just a matter of crossing T's, dotting I's. We got some furniture that needs built. We have just a little bit of groundwork left, but that's not really a concern. The greatest concern was the power. So once that's on, it's really up to us. It's in our hands to
I
get her
feel
done.
like you're living my life last year, this exact time.
Oh,
Where is Nova Scotia Power? And just being like freezing cold and being like, just give me heat and light.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then everything can get turned on. Do they have bathrooms inside of them, or is there like essentially they have
Yep.
little bathrooms in them? Yeah.
Yep.
So you can't turn your water on. You can't do anything until.
Yep. And we just got our first like kind of real snowfall there this week. So now we're plowing. It's not quite freezing, unbearable cold, like to work outside cold, but it's like starting to get there, Now there's snow in the way. Like the ground isn't quite frozen, but like in another week it will be, right? So we're really down to that nitty gritty of, it's, it gets dark at 4:30 right now. So you can't work as productively as long as you could in the summer, right? So it's really getting down to that grind of just about on the cusp of winter. If we can get that power going, that'll be huge. We both had the hurricane setback. You had buildings. We didn't have buildings, but that was a huge barrier. And then even the forest fires this year, like we had to shut down all of our equipment, all of our excavators and trucks and stuff that were in the woods. We had to shut that down to eliminate the risk of fire. We talked about the hurricane. I want to talk about that on this podcast. Like you had buildings in place. Fiona came through. Like what were you thinking when you got that news? Like what was going through your head? What was the reality of the day before the hurricane, the day after? Without giving you too much PTSD.
Oh God, yeah. Well, it was crazy because my house, like it was shaking a bit that night and whatever. We did lose power, but it was nothing that was alarming. Woke up in the morning, went outside. There wasn't even like a twig down. There was also some little leaf pieces all over the house and the car, but like, okay, fine. Walked down the street. There was one tree down. Turned the corner, and that's when I was like, okay, there's like shingles off roofs. Trees are down, power lines are down, and I'm like, okay, this was bad, but let's go see. And then trying to drive to Seek, that's when it was like pretty crazy because all the power lines were down, so like trying to safely get there, and then just seeing all the trees that were down, and I'm thinking like, oh my God. So we pull into Seek, the first like 100 meters were fine, and then we just kind of like turn a bend, and I'm like, all these, because we had spent like $100,000 protecting trees. Like I had experts come in, we had these tree protectors. The contractors hated me because I was making their excavators like go around these trees, and they were like, just clearing is cheap, protecting is expensive.
Yep.
So they were just so annoyed with me, but like was very adamant about it. And then they all fell, and I was a level of grief that I never, like I lost my brother, I lost my dad, like I've experienced a deep loss. So I can't compare it to that, but it was a different type of grief. It was something I'd never experienced. I literally cried over trees, cried my eyes out, cried over the destruction. And shortly behind me came the contractor that was doing all the infrastructure work. He pulled in behind me, and I basically was like, don't talk to me. Like, don't Like, I literally cannot speak to you right now. So don't say to me, oh, Miriah, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't want to hear it. Like,
Yeah.
And so I went home and cried for 24 hours. And I was like, really didn't even at that point grasp the damage because you couldn't even really like get through. I knew it was really bad, but I was like, I just went home and climbed in bed. My mom drove over and basically like hugged me like I was 5 again and like sort of rocked me. And then I woke up the next day. And I don't know if you remember, but it didn't hit New Brunswick as bad. But the next day was beautiful outside, clear as could be, like 15 degrees, like just so nice out. So we go up, and I was like, well, it's time to get to work. I had taken my chainsaw course about like 5 months before that. So got my chainsaw gear on and was like, well, it's time to get to work. And as I got to work, I realized more and more of the damage. But like I had mentioned before about the community, a lot of people came out and volunteered for me. And a lot of people came and spent days cutting trees and days clearing. And I had probably 3 weeks of rotating volunteers that came and helped me and really gave back and really supported me during that time. A lot of people with chainsaws. And so we worked for 3 weeks and were able to clear it. It's still like devastating, like the damage. But this summer, someone said to me, I read in your guidebook that you had a hurricane. Where was the hurricane? And I'm like, you can't see like all the trees down? And she was like, no, like you wouldn't even know. And I was like, oh, like
nice.
Only I know really now, right? Like the community can see, but only I know because no one had been there before.
Yep.
But I do believe in our business plans going forward, we do have to be very prepared for natural disaster because not only did we have massive hurricane, wow, what a wake up call that was. Then we had wildfires, which shut us all down for a month, and really put a massive strain on the business because people couldn't be in the forest, couldn't have fires. What's the glamping place without campfires?
Yep.
And then floods, which Seek is elevated and we were fine, but it washed roads away. And also people have deductibles. People aren't thinking about traveling. They're thinking about saving their flooding basement or evacuating their house or helping their neighbors or whatever. So people's mindset completely changed during those times, whether they impact you or not. It's the same as the issues happening in Gaza and Israel right now. Like that sort of that energy, even though it's thankfully not directly impacting us in the sense it's in our community, but we're still carrying the weight of that, right?
Of course.
And carrying the emotional turbulence of a war. And so it has just like a real negative energy on your business when these types of things happen. But I do think we have to be prepared for them because they're going to continue to happen. And we have to have a strategy in place. Like, what are we going to do? Because, your bank's only going to forgive you so many times.
Yep. Yeah.
On your loan payments.
That reminds me of COVID. Actually, there's a respected business owner here in our community that does very well, but is very humble. But he could definitely be showing off a lot more than he is. He's just a humble, really nice, salt of the earth gentleman. And I remember I was in buying material. He sells flooring, and I was in buying material, and I said, COVID, like what's going on? And at that time, no one knew how it would affect different businesses. And he's a very soft-spoken guy. And he said, Sawyer, he said, not everyone plans for a rainy day, but he said, by the fuck, sometimes it rains. And I remembered that. And I said, you know what? You need to prepare for the worst case scenario. You need to have some type of emergency fund or some type of plan of action or something. Like you have to be prepared just in case, because guess what? If it never happens, great. You had the security the whole time. But if it happens, you're in big trouble if you don't have some type of plan or some type of money set aside or in mind or some kind of strategy to deal with that, right? No one expected the pandemic. No one expected Fiona. I mean, I was in New Brunswick, and the night before the hurricane, I was having a drink with my father and my neighbor, and they're like, Sawyer, you should go tie your docks. Like the water's going to rise. You should go tie your docks. So, sure. So in the dark, I tied my docks just because they told me to an hour earlier. And the next morning I went out, and the water had rose about between 8 and 10 feet. It was flush with my grass. So I have an 8-foot retaining wall that didn't exist. my docks, my posts are 16 feet high, and let's say 6 or 8 feet is in the ground, so 6 or 8 feet are exposed, or 10 feet, whatever. The docks floated completely above the posts, so you couldn't even see the posts. There was no post, and there was just a floating dock that was tied to 2 trees because they told me to tie it the night before. And we lost a few limbs, and I said, okay, whatever, no big deal. Everyone here in New Brunswick's good, like no problems. We got through it, like I don't mind a storm. I like the odd snowstorm, or it's when the power goes out once a year. It can be kind of fun, whatever. So I said, okay, yeah, got through that. And then I got a call from my business partner, and he was like, Sawyer, we might need to sell the land. And that was when I knew. I was like, this is not good. And then the photos came, and then I seen the photos, and exactly that. It was not good.
And the thing is, like, you can't rebuild, like, you can't just be like, okay, we'll just like plop some tree, like if your windows break in your house, and you can repair your windows, or you can like put new siding on, you can like put a new roof on, but like you can't just rebuild a forest. So it's a long-term plan. It's like, okay, we've got basically 10 to 15 plus years before our forest even looks remotely similar, just to have protection and privacy. And you kind of have to, I had to feel sorry for myself for a couple of days, which I did, and I did it very well. But then I had to pick up the pieces and keep going. And I worked nonstop for 3 weeks. Well, for months, but for 3 weeks, just clearing, hauling brush. And I think we have to have the rainy day fund, and we have to be prepared. But then when these things happen, we have, instead of just like wallowing, we have to just figure it out. Like we have to be like, okay, like what is our game plan here? And how are we going to survive this? And how are we going to like use the challenge of the time to force us to think out of the box and to come up with, and maybe, maybe you can't have tourists because they're saying nobody should travel unnecessarily on highways because you don't want to tie up resources, right? So you're thinking, okay, so now what? You know what? Local people have always wanted to try Seek. Here's my chance. Worst case scenario, $100 a night, single night stays. Local people can come, figure it out. At least like there's some revenue coming in, and do like a whole local package, like something to entice people. So I'm kind of like, what's my plan if X, Y, and Z happens? Who can I at least target, and how can I get them here? And can I create some girls' nights and some, a few different things to incentivize people locally? And it would be single nights or different things to try to get people. But like that, because I think if you just wait, and I think that's when people get in trouble with businesses, they just hope that it's going to get better, but that hope is not a strategy.
Yep. And that's what separates the entrepreneurs from the entrepreneurs. It's you have to take action. You have to make the worst out of a shitty situation sometimes. You have to get it done. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to come down and save you. Like, the bank is still going to expect their payment on the first of the month. And, the power company is going to expect their payment, and the insurance company is going to expect their payment, and your employees are going to expect their paychecks. And, you gotta get her done. You have no choice. And to me, I find that helps. It allows me to remove the emotions from whatever problem is in front of me. It's like, I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. I have to take action and get it done. And some of the most stressful things in my career so far, that has got me through. It's like, if I sit here and cry about it, the problem isn't going to go away. It's probably just going to get bigger. So, get my cry out of the way, or sulk, or call my mother and vent for a half an hour, hang up the phone and get to work.
Yeah, pick up the pieces. And people that get really like almost an attack mode, it's because they've allowed it to get so bad. Like I always think like when businesses say, okay, well, I have too much inventory and I have to clear it out and I'm going to shut my business down. It's like, you knew before that you knew things were bad. So before it gets to that state and just hoping that it gets better, you have to do something about it. You have to do what you have to do. And it's the same, like I could help retail businesses, particularly gift shops, till the cows come home, and how to make your retail season, Christmas, successful. Because when I get through to the end of December, I never have Christmas inventory left, almost none, because I wouldn't wait to sell it at half price. I would be coming up with strategies. If it wasn't selling, I wouldn't wait until the end. I would be attacking all month long in ways to move any seasonal inventory.
Yep.
And a lot of people just kind of wait and hope that it sells. And it's like, hope, you can't hope. You have to move, and you have to come up with ways to get it out the door. Yep. And I've always had a strategy. I haven't done it great with my clothing by any means, but with the gift wares, after 120 days, it's of no value. It's like I clear it and I'm on to the next thing. And it's like the lesson learned.
Yep.
And I've sort of used that. I don't wait for things to get bad. I don't allow, I've always, created a slush fund for myself, but I've also always thinking of the next, I don't want to say negative because you don't want to think for the worst, but kind of preparing. Yep. And I knew that Christmas 2023 last year was going to be different because I knew the economic time that was coming. And so I purchased in last January for this Christmas differently based on that. I knew the price point. I knew how people were going to shop. I knew, and it's worked. My sales are right where they've always been. I'm not down because I have, smaller carts, but I have the items that people are paying and the prices that people are prepared to pay right now.
Right.
And I didn't fill my store with any high ticketed items because I just knew that it was going to take some more thinking. And I didn't know if people were going to do it. So I feel that I know that 2024 is going to be very, very tough for businesses. It's going to be tough for people. And what does that look like? Well, I already know that the key for 2024, as it's always been, it's not a new thing, but it's collaboration because we cannot operate in silos as a business owner, but no time more than now that businesses have to work together to support each other because the economy is going to be so tricky for people. And there's a lot of loan repayments that are going to be due, SEPA payments and things like that. And so people are really going to have to work. Businesses are really going to have to find unique ways to work with other businesses, maybe the people that never thought of, companies they never even had in their mirror, and say, how can we work together to support and help each other and come up with out of the box ways to sort of promote each other's businesses. And I think hopefully the ones like you said, like the real entrepreneurs, the people that sort of have that vision, will really do well in that time because they'll be back against the wall and they're sort of forced to really think out of the box. And the hopeful entrepreneurs will probably not make it.
Right.
When I say hopeful, I mean the ones that like use hope as a strategy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to me, and what I've learned too from my business coach is like the extremities expand your capacity. So if it's just easy going, a great economy, easy going, you're not built that rugged. But all of a sudden when there's challenges, every time you get through a challenge, it builds you up a little bit. It thickens your skin. It cause you're tested, right? And if we have a down economy in 2024, we're going to be tested, as operators. And if we can figure it out, get more creative, dig a little deeper, work a little harder, make that uncomfortable phone call, make that unconventional partnership, things like that, that's going to add grit to our skill set, and it's going to toughen us up. And I think that I always look at those challenges as a positive. Economically, maybe it's not great for business, but maybe it's good for my growth, or maybe it's good for my, maybe it's testing me, and maybe it's making me a better operator for the next thing, and I've had hardships. Like we mentioned clothing. I remember I bought way too much inventory. I put a date on it in 2017 and I bought, t-shirts at the time were, I don't know, $8 or $10 a piece, sold them for like $3 a piece because they were out of date and had to liquidate and all that. So I was losing money, like $7 on every t-shirt sale, losing. And I just remember I thought Country Liberty almost went under. That's a story nobody knows because I had like 90% of my capital invested in these shirts that I was selling at a loss. And I was like, I'm never going to make this mistake again. This sucked. This lesson sucked, but it prepared me for the next time, and it's like, I'm never going to allow this to happen. And I've made other mistakes, but not that one,
I
So it's
know
just,
those
it
are
is what it
bad
is.
lessons. Those are hard lessons to learn, but we do learn
Yep.
them. And I think, like maybe 2024 is, as long as you have a bit of cash to kind of, and you manage your money and you can kind of see yourself through this time, is the pause. Like maybe it's a little bit of a slow down time, because since 2020 in particular, which was very good for business,
Yep.
we've all really been like go, 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 go. And it's been like supply chain issues and go, 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 go. And like kind of
Yep.
like hustling because you're always afraid you can't get. And then people are spending. So you need to keep up with those spending habits and buying more
Yep.
inventory. So maybe it will be a necessary pause to kind of like catch our breath and like refocus and, make some different decisions, maybe skim some areas that needed to be skimmed because you'd be forced to.
Yep.
When you're making money, you don't always make those good decisions because you're like, yeah, well, I'm making money, so I'll just
Yep.
keep everybody working and not really question their seat on the bus,
Yep. Absolutely. Not all business growth is associated to top line revenue or bottom line profits. It's sometimes you can grow. Sometimes one step back means two steps forward, and COVID and maybe difficult economic times is a great time. I love that suggestion. It's a great time to look at those things and work on those things and maybe build infrastructure, maybe take an online course, or maybe read a couple extra books because, you're not quite as busy day to day or whatever, right? There's always an opportunity to grow, and it's not always associated with sales in business,
Yeah,
my opinion,
absolutely. And I think we lose sight of that. I do think I do. I think you're more evolved than I am, but I do think as entrepreneurs, and I think as aspiring entrepreneurs, we do kind of get caught in that. And we get caught on like the sales figure, and we get caught on like this hustle, and it's like, well, you have to measure your growth in different ways, like you just mentioned. And maybe your sales are down 30%, but as a streamlined business, your knowledge, your personal growth, all of these types of all of these things that we don't always measure. We can measure different KPIs. We can look at other ways how we're going to actually measure the success of the business, instead of maybe we can't use 2024 as sales financial growth, but we can say, okay, well, we've always wanted to do this. We've always wanted to try that. So now let's build these new set of KPIs. Let's measure them, and let's take the time to sort of figure out, and maybe you need to just build better systems and processes. Maybe it's just building those shelves you've always needed, and you're like, okay, now we're going to do this. Maybe we're going to clean and sell stuff that we don't need.
My mentality has really become trusting my journey, trusting what happens, trusting, that what happens is supposed to happen. All we can control is our preparation, prepare as best as possible, have a positive outlook, do our very best with what we have and what we know, and then just kind of let the rest be. And if it's good or bad, or at least you're trying, trying is better than not doing anything. So to me, it's just, you just get up to the plate and you swing the bat and you try to hit the ball. And if you miss, you try to swing again, and you hit that one and you hit that one further and you miss that one. And it's just the kind of the way it goes, and I think that, for me, who really likes control as a business owner, I like to control the variables and control the outcomes. I've kind of trained myself to let go of that a little bit and just do my very best. And that's all I can do. And my grandmother used to say, she says, do your best until you know better. And once you know better, do better.
Yes.
Very
true.
Yeah.
We should set our own weekly, monthly catch up. We share similar vision, similar mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I was told I need an accountability partner.
Yeah,
because I am very independent with how I operate, and I don't always have someone to bounce ideas off of, and those things. So there you go. Maybe we could do that.
We could be our accountability partners. We could set our own goals, say what we're going to do, and then catch up monthly or whatever, quarterly or whatever, how extensive the goals are, and catch up and then say, all right, let's hear it.
Absolutely. I would love that. Yeah. I need that because as the owner, no one is really, your customers and your clients and stuff kind of tell you what to do in a sense, but not in every aspect of your business and your life. Right. So I would value that.
yeah, that would be awesome.
Cool. I won't take up any more of your time because this has already gone longer than I think I told you it would. Just the very last thing, Miriah. Well, first of all, thank you very much. But where can people find you? What are your handles, your website, links, things like that?
Yep. So for the clothing and the giftware side, like by retail, it's all at My Home Mercantile. So we have all the handles are at My Home Mercantile, myhomemercantile.com. And Seek is Stay at Seek. Everything is Stay at Seek. For Instagram, I do a little bit of TikTok, not much, but a little bit. And my website is, of course, all Stay at Seek. And then my own, I don't do much on my own personal, but Miriah Kearney, and you can find me on there. And I'm going to be sharing more on my own personal page about the next chapter in my life and what it looks like. So you can follow along for that.
Awesome. I love that. And My Home Apparel, it's Canadian made goods. They give back to homelessness. And
Yep.
Seek is a beautiful resort, sustainable resort built out of sea can containers just outside Victoria Park, Truro. So if you're looking for a place to stay, check it out. If you're looking to support local and homelessness, helping resolve that issue, support My Home. And yeah, thank you very much for coming on, Miriah. It was awesome.
Okay, thanks, Sawyer. We'll
Awesome.
see you soon for our accountability meeting.
That's right. Awesome. See you later.
Okay,
Thank you.
Bye.
The Sawyer Hannay Show.